Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Thursday, the 21st of August. You're tuned into our mid-morning newscast here on Arirang TV. I'm Mark Broom in a very rainy Seoul. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines today. A special bill designed to get to the bottom of April's deadly ferry sinking is in limbo yet again, as the families of the victims express their strong opposition to it. The hold-up is adding to the gridlock at the National Assembly, where hundreds of bills await approval. Amid a wave of high-profile bullying scandals, Korea's army chief vows to immediately disband units where abuse and human rights violations repeatedly take place. Plus, US President Barack Obama says the beheading of journalist James Foley by Islamic State has shocked the conscience of the entire world. He vows the United States will continue airstrikes against IS targets in Iraq. But our top story this morning, Korea's rival political parties have fallen back into a standoff on a special bill on the Sewol-ho ferry disaster. The parties had reached a deal earlier this week, but the main opposition party has since withheld its endorsement of the agreement after the families of the victims said they opposed it. Our Myung-kil starts us off.
Bereaved families of April's ferry sinking, which took the lives of more than 300 people, held a meeting this Wednesday and opposed the compromised Sewol-ho ferry bill.
Are you siding with the enemy? The fact the opposition party is telling us to concede to the terms they negotiated with the Saenuri Party's floor leader makes it sound as if we should walk hand in hand with the enemy. That is not possible.
Rival party floor leaders had ironed out a deal on Tuesday that would make the Saenuri Party receive approval from the main opposition party and the victims' families before nominating two committee members, ending weeks of partisan bickering over the special bill. But families of the victims killed in the ferry sinking demanded an overhaul of Tuesday's agreement, saying the renegotiated version of the bill would not guarantee a sufficiently thorough probe into the disaster, as it lacks investigative and prosecutorial powers. The ruling party said further negotiations were out of the question and regretted the family's rejection of the compromise. Meanwhile, the opposition party had tried to persuade the families to support the bill, but failed to do so. The current political deadlock is preventing the passage of thousands of other bills as opposition lawmakers refuse to hold a plenary session unless the Sewol-ho ferry bill is passed first. Some key pending legislation includes amendments to existing safety regulations and a series of economic bills. Both parties are hoping to agree on creating some kind of consensus with the families within this month. The National Assembly's next extraordinary session begins this Friday. Myung-kil, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea's military has been tarnished by a series of bullying scandals in recent weeks and months, which have highlighted aspects of cruelty and humiliation that are unfortunately ingrained within barracks culture here in South Korea. And with more and more cases emerging by the day, the Army's Chief of Staff on Wednesday vowed to crack down on mental and physical bullying, which he said was akin to treason. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
Investigations are underway into dozens of newly reported cases of sexual harassment and physical abuse at military barracks around the country, in the wake of a series of similar cases that have left the nation shaken, including the death of an Army private who was beaten to death by his superiors in April. More cases are coming to light. Army Chief of Staff General Kim Yo-han likened violence in the barracks to treason and said operations to root it out would soon begin. The general says strong measures would be taken, including the dismantling of units that failed to improve their situations. According to an Army official, a total of 758 cases were reported through military hotlines this month alone. That's an increase of 26% compared to the previous month. 3 cases in the eastern border town of Hwacheon are among those under investigation. Suspects there allegedly sexually molested 7 of their subordinates numerous times during April and May. In a different incident, an Army corporal is suspected of beating 2 of his subordinates and stuffing flies into their mouths. Most of the suspects defended their actions, saying they did it for fun or as an expression of friendliness. To better prevent such incidents, The Army has decided to strengthen military education and boost patrol and inspections in all units throughout the country. All able-bodied men are subject to 2 years of mandatory military service in South Korea. There are currently over 650,000 active servicemen in the country. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Now, some appalling details about Japan's use of wartime sex slaves has emerged. An elderly Japanese man who used to serve in the military during World War II told a Japanese author that the sex slaves would serve more than 300 troops a day. China's People's Daily reported on Wednesday that the testimony was included in a book called Military Comfort Woman by Kago Senda. The book, that was recently translated into Chinese, details accounts from the soldier who said he witnessed many women from different countries being forced into sexual slavery during the war. The author states that most of the women forced into sexual slavery were Chinese, and their number made up around 20 million. Now, it is historical differences like sex slavery that have driven such a huge wedge between Korea and Japan that President Park Geun-hye is yet to sit down for one-on-one summit talks with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. A Korean diplomat says bilateral relations will only improve when Japan takes certain steps to atone for its past wrongdoings. Our Hwang Sang-hee has this report.
South Korean ambassador to the United States An Ho-young says it's basic common sense that Japan should apologize for its wartime atrocities before bilateral summit talks occur between the nation's leaders. In a keynote speech at a seminar in Washington on Tuesday, An said Seoul would elevate its relations with Tokyo only when it's ready to acknowledge the past as it is. The diplomat said such action was necessary to ensure that a summit between the two leaders leads to improved ties. Relations between Korea and Japan have hit a new low in recent years as the Abe administration continues to distort historical facts. President Park Geun-hye refuses to sit down with their Japanese counterpart until he apologizes for Japan's sexual enslavement of Korean women in early 20th century. The two leaders have not held a bilateral summit since either took office. Japan understands that settling the sexual slavery issue is key to cooling tensions with Korea, according to a senior foreign ministry official in Seoul. He told reporters Tuesday that the Korean and Japanese foreign ministers agreed in Myanmar earlier this month on the need for progress in their monthly high-level talks aimed at resolving the sex slavery issue. As for the past 3 rounds of talks that were held, the senior diplomat made clear that it's too early to talk about whether any progress is being made. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
A former high-level US official has warned North Korea against raising the provocation stakes too much, saying a war would mean the end of North Korea. In an interview with South Korea's Yonhap news agency, former Director of National Intelligence Dennis Blair said the North Korean regime would be wiped out by nuclear weapons if they first used a nuclear weapon. He said North Korea is well aware of this fact and knows there's a limit to how far they can go. The former intelligence chief also said that North Korea will conduct another nuclear test whenever it wants to, quote, create a threat in an attempt to extract certain concessions out of the US and South Korea.
Said that a team of South Korea.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. Arirang News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers $15 billion. Now, a new survey suggests the team President Park has tasked with shoring up the economy is right to worry about the potential for a long-term slump here in Korea. However, despite their concerns, the majority of economic experts believe the team, which is led by Korea's Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan, is right to roll out fiscal stimulus measures. Our Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
The new economic team led by Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan has received a passing grade for boosting the domestic economy, at least according to the 37 economic experts recently surveyed by the Federation of Korean Industries. More than half of the respondents said the set of government stimulus measures proposed are sufficient for propping up the ailing economy. Just around 15% of them thought they were not. The experts surveyed also said that government measures should focus on boosting domestic demand by removing excessive regulations and running an expansionary fiscal and financial policy. While around half of the experts expressed concerns about the Korean economy falling into a low-growth trap that resembles that of Japan, the other half were more optimistic, saying the domestic economy is on a recovery track, but that the momentum has slowed because of the ferry disaster in April. They cited the sluggish real estate market, mounting household debt, and worsening consumer and business sentiment due to the ferry tragedy as the biggest challenges currently facing the economy. As for the long-term problems, the experts pointed to the absence of new growth engines, slumping private consumption and investment, the low birth rate, and Korea's aging population. The majority of the experts expect that domestic demand will return to the level seen just before the April ferry disaster if the government measures are implemented as planned. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Now, Korean academics are increasingly finding a place on the world stage for mathematics, once considered a reserve of the academic world only. Korean researchers are increasingly putting math theorems to more practical use, applying them for use in everyday gadgets and devices. Our Kim Ji-yeon has this report.
The application of math theorems provides an important foundation for the advancement of modern technology. 3D printers, one of the most promising inventions of the 21st century, are based on a calculus theory known as Fubini's theorem. Introduced by Guido Fubini in the early 20th century, it states that in order to materialize an object with n-level dimensions, one can do so by piling up the matter of n-1 dimensions.
If it wasn't for Fubini's theorem, it would not have been possible to intricately pile layer upon layer to produce a three-dimensional object. The rudimentary alternative is to take a large object and sharpen it, but this method cannot produce the sophisticated designs like those made by 3D printers.
Due to its growing importance, Korea has increasingly tried to find ways to nourish local mathematicians, and has been making significant progress in the field over the past 30 years. Korea ranked first in the International Mathematical Olympiads in 2012 and has maintained a top 7 ranking since. A number of math dissertations from Korea have been published in academic journals overseas, putting it at 11th in the world. However, Park Kyung-ju, professor at Pohang University of Science and Technology, says there's still a long way to go in terms of promoting the quality of research. He's emphasizing the need to create a conducive environment for local mathematicians.
So they tend to do research whose results are kind of predictable, or they know for sure that they can solve. Instead of actually challenging the problems that can actually make impacts. Because the problem is the whole research infrastructure, including grants opportunities, promotes that mindset.
The winners of this year's Fields Medals, which are among the most prestigious awards in mathematics, underscore the importance of quality education in nurturing young mathematicians so that they can experience and appreciate the beauty of the subject and stay the course. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, French film director Luc Besson, who is most well known for his visually rich and very quirky films like The Fifth Element and Leon, is back in the spotlight. He has another feature film coming out called Lucy, which stars Scarlett Johansson, Morgan Freeman and Korean actor Chae Min-sik. Besson was in Seoul on Wednesday to promote this new film, and our Shin Se-min was there.
Manipulating time and controlling people. According to Luc Besson's latest film, Lucy, if humans were able to use 100% of their cerebral cognitive powers, they'd all have such super abilities. The movie stars Scarlett Johansson as a character who accidentally gains superpowers from a brain-enhancing drug and lays revenge on the dealer who sets her up, played by Korea's own Chae Min-sik. Besson's twisted plot was inspired by the old myth that human beings use only 10% of their brain power, an idea that's impacted the director.
As an adventurer, I always challenge and experience all things myself, and I have personally become more picky as an audience member over the age of 50. I've been working to make a solid film that contains both action and a thrilling psychological element, and Lucy is it.
Besong is known worldwide, but this film marks the first Hollywood debut for Choi Min-sik, and many media outlets have applauded his performance, even saying that he saves the film. While promoting the movie, Choi said it was an honor to work with such a renowned director like Besong, adding that he learned a lot from the experience.
Already garnering box office earnings of over $130 million worldwide, this psychological action thriller is expected to hit the Korean theaters on September 4th. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following on this Thursday morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim at the News Centre. Good morning, Eunice.
Hello, Mark.
So, new this morning, in the beheading of journalist James Foley by Islamic State militants, U.S. officials say there was an attempt to rescue him in the past.
That's right. The Pentagon said that the rescue operation earlier this summer was aimed at freeing the now murdered James Foley as well as other American hostages. This revelation comes as the U.S. president showed that he was undeterred in his resolve to engage the jihadist militants. Our Connie Lee has more.
A spokesperson for the Pentagon has revealed that the United States attempted a rescue operation in Syria earlier this summer, not only to free U.S. journalist James Foley, but also other American hostages being held in Syria by Islamic State militants. It was a secret, major rescue operation launched by U.S. Special Forces against the Islamic State. The Pentagon statement on Wednesday said the operation involved air and ground components, but did not succeed because the hostages were not present at the targeted location. This new information came as the U.S. launched a wave of new airstrikes against Islamic State targets in Iraq. On the same day, President Barack Obama, in a televised statement, said the U.S. will be relentless in the fight against the militant group following the brutal murder of Mr. Foley. President Obama, who said he was heartbroken over the incident, said the U.S. will do what's necessary to see that justice is done. He also compared the militant group to cancer, whose spread must be stopped. The president's message came less than a day after the militants released a video of the American journalist being beheaded. The Islamic State is believed to be holding several American hostages, including journalist Steven Sotloff. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu has promised to continue his campaign against Gaza militants, quote, with all means and as is needed. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict resurged early Wednesday as both sides blamed each other for the collapse in peace talks in Egypt. In a televised address, Netanyahu called Hamas, quote, a branch of the same tree to the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, vowing to secure full security and quiet for Israelis. The Israeli military said it carried out 92 airstrikes in response to 137 rockets shot into its airspace since the truce talks broke down. Among those targeted was the home of Hamas military commander Mohammed Deif, who survived according to Hamas officials, while his wife and infant son were killed Tuesday. U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder has arrived in Ferguson, Missouri to lead the federal civil rights investigation being conducted by FBI agents on the ground. Ahead of his trip, Holder promised a full, fair, and independent probe into the shooting death of an unarmed 18-year-old black man by a white police officer. Reports also suggest that the Attorney General is mulling over opening a broader investigation into policing in Ferguson amid several claims of police misconduct. Police arrested 47 people on Tuesday night local time, though violence appeared to have tapered off. Community leaders are appealing for calm and reconciliation. At least 39 people are feared dead and others still missing after torrential rains battered western Japan on Wednesday. Aerial shots of a mountainous region just outside of Hiroshima City showed scores of homes buried by the sludge, their frames overtaken by the weight of the mud. Japan's weather agency said a month's worth of rain, some 240 millimeters, had fallen in the 24 hours leading up to Wednesday morning, about half of that in 1 hour. Weather officials warned more rain could trigger further landslides.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2014 Incheon Asian Games, as yesterday marked D30 until the big event. And on Wednesday, the media day took place as well. Then a joint press conference at the National Training Center. 42 athletes and coaches from 20 different events came together to talk about their goals for the Asian Games in September. While their goal is set at winning at least 90 gold medals and finishing behind China in the overall medal count, the athletes hope to bring the nation back to their feet, with the country suffering from the sluggish economy and the tragic sinking of Sewol-ho ferry still fresh in their minds. And now moving over to football this time, where it's no wonder Bayer Leverkusen didn't want to send Son Heung-min over to the Incheon Asian Games. Well, that's because the regular season hasn't even kicked off in Germany's Bundesliga, and already he's scored 2 goals. With Bayer Leverkusen taking on FC Copenhagen in the UEFA Champions League playoffs, Son Heung-min scores his 2nd goal of the season and his 1st Champions League goal this season in the 42nd minute of the match, helping Bayern take the match 3-2. Now the German side just needs a draw in order to advance to the Champions League group stages. And speaking of the Champions League, let's now move over to the AFC Champions League, this time as 2 K-League Classic teams faced off on Wednesday during the first leg of the round of 8 matchup. Now with FC Seoul taking on the Pohang Steelers at the Pohang Steelyards, Pohang playing aggressive football from the start, only to be stopped by Seoul's defense. But the 16th minute, Kim Seung-dae finds the back of the net, but no goal, says the ref, due to a foul. Now both sides going to the second half scoreless as both FC Seoul and Pohang get several chances at scoring, but donuts across the board as the first leg ends in a 0-0 draw. And now finishing things off with some Wednesday night KBO action, we had a couple of games rain out as the Samsung Lions and the Kia Tigers were rained out, as well as the Lotte Giants and the Hanwha Eagles. But the Nexon Heroes beat the LG Twins 5-2 in Mokdong. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Doosan Bears take on the struggling SK Wyverns. Of course, going into the game here, 2nd inning, Yang Yi-ji with an RBI single to center gives the Doosan Bears the early 1-0 lead. But in the bottom of the inning, Park Jung-kwon at bat, and this one to opposite field, gone, and we're tied 1-1. 3rd inning, bases loaded for Lee Won-suk, walks on 4 pitches, and it's now 2-1. Next batter, Kim Jae-ho at bat, and he walks as well, giving the Doosan Bears the 3-1 lead. 6th inning, here come the SK Wyverns. Chejong with an RBI single to center, cuts the deficit to 3-2 before Kim Gang-min ties it up with an RBI double. 7th inning, SK continues to swing away, including a 2-run double by Chejong, as the SK Wyverns rally to win this game 6-3. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
It's pouring right now here in Seoul, and it seems like the rainfall is getting heavier each hour. In fact, heavy rain advisory was issued in Seoul about an hour ago. Though the mountainous regions in the upper provinces will see the most rainfall of up to 120 millimeters, while the other upper provinces will see 30 to 80, and down south will see 10 to 50 during the day. And the rain will let up in the southern regions starting this afternoon, while the central and the rest will see rain till tomorrow morning. And as for today's readings, the afternoon high in the capital will only make it to 24, while Daegu will rise to 28, and Gwangju and Busan will climb to 27 this afternoon. And for other regions, Jeju Island will get up to 28, Daejeon will top out at 27, and Dokdo should see highs of 23, while Mount Keungang reaches at 18. Well, rain up north will be easing up tomorrow morning, and thankfully this weekend is looking mostly to partly sunny, and temperatures will be on the warm side. Well, so the weather should be pleasant for this weekend. And if you're on the roads, don't forget to turn on the headlights. It's dark, foggy, and pouring. We can hardly see what's in front of us. So please drive with extra caution. That's all for now. Back to Alex, or Mark, that is. Back to Mark in the studio.
Well, thank you very much, Jion, for that. And that's all we have for now. Thanks for watching the program. We'll be back at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.